Can you all guess what is this? Okay, so this is one of the angas. Okay, the sacred scripture in Jainism is classified into certain categories, right? 6 categories. There are certain categories. One of those is the angas. This. Okay, Mahavira, and we see that what are some of the principles of Jainism? Okay, non-violence you have. Okay, Anikanta Vada will be dealing with that also today. Okay, let's move on. Here. Okay, one of the teachings you can say. So today what we will do is, we'll take a look at the Jaina system of education. So the procedure is going to be like this. We'll take a look at their teachings, their principles, their philosophy, and then we shall apply it to the system of education. So first and foremost, all of you know how many Tirthankaras were there? Okay, so you had 24 Tirthankaras, and who are they supposed to be? Who are the Tirthankaras? Teachers or liberated persons who went about preaching the truth. Now, who is the founder of Jainism? Okay, Mahavira. Now, we know that which Tirthankara is, which number is the 24th Tirthankara. Now, what about the other 23? Okay, we see that each of the 23 Tirthankaras, okay, had some contribution done, whether it was with regards to certain principles or whether with regards to certain teachings. But it was Mahavira who put everything together and also introduced the 5th vow of chastity. That is the reason why we see that Mahavira is considered to be the founder of Jainism. Okay, so if you all want to know more about that, in the first year's class we have dealt with all the roles of the 23 Tirthankaras and what they have contributed to Jainism. So we see that Jainism also had a great influence in India. Now we see that it is one of the smallest major world religions. Okay, and it has contributed culturally, philosophically, and also socially to Indian culture and Indian education and tradition. So now let's enter into the metaphysics of Jainism. So first and foremost, we see that it deals with plurality of souls. And what do we understand by the plurality of souls? Okay, one thing is, as I said, uniqueness. Anything else? Okay, so Jainism believes that there are, first and foremost, many souls. Okay, so as there are living beings, there are that many souls, because they say that every living being has a soul. And therefore, they say that each soul is unique and each also possesses its own existence. Then they also believe that all living beings, okay, whether it is plants or animals, also have souls. But once again, we see that these souls tend to vary with regards to degree of consciousness. Okay, that means all of them don't possess the same level of consciousness. Now, we see that higher forms like humans will have a kind of a greater level of consciousness, while plants, microorganisms will have a lesser degree of consciousness. And can anyone tell why is this variation in the degree? What is it dependent upon? Okay, first and foremost, you have because of the sensory capabilities and also because of the physical form. Okay, so the complexity in the physical form as well as the sensory capabilities lead to this variation of consciousness between the various beings. Now, can anybody attain liberation? Yes, how? Any idea? In Jainism? So we see that every soul in a way has this potential for liberation. Okay? And in Jainism we see that the soul inherently has knowledge, power and happiness. So it has the potentiality for all this. But we see that because of karma. Okay, so here karma is seen as something which attaches itself and prevents the soul from, in a way, realizing its full potentiality. A clear example of this can be the cloudy sky. Okay, so you have the sun shining brightly, but we say because of the clouds, the rays of the sun are not able to, so you are not able to have the bright sunlight. Okay, so in this way, similarly, karma tends to obscure the soul, or it forms a kind of a veil or a layer before the soul, preventing it from achieving its full potentiality. So, therefore, we see that it is only when you shed this karmic impurities that can one attain liberation. Now, what are the 5 vows? Any idea? Which are there in Jainism, or the 5 main principles which we have to practice? Okay, one is non-violence. then Ahimsa. Next, something to do with truth, that is Satya. Then you also have non-stealing, non-possession, and finally chastity. And we see that chastity applied for both the monks as well as the lay people. So, what are the four categories of society in Jainism? Four categories of people. So, you had the monks, you had the nuns, then you also had the lay men and lay women. Now, when we see chastity for these two, for the monks and the nuns, it is absolute abstinence. For the lay men and lay women, it is more with regards to fidelity. Okay, chastity in the sense of faithfulness to one's spouse. Okay, so it is said that one can achieve liberation by following the path that involves non-violence, truth, non-stealing, non-possession, and chastity. So therefore, the whole conduct, or when you speak about ethics in Jainism, it will also involve these five abstinences. That is, not to lie, not to steal, not to strive for luxury, then not to strive for possessions, not to injure. Okay, and also to be chaste. So it is said that among all these also, non-violence is of prime importance in Jainism. Now, is there a God in Jainism? Okay. Why? Please. Okay, one has to work for salvation. Any other idea? So, when you speak about God, what idea do you all have when it comes to Jainism? Okay, each has a potential to become God. Any other thing? Okay, so first and foremost, Jainism doesn't believe in the concept that there is a creator God. So, what do we understand by this concept of creator God? That means there is one person who is controlling everything. For example, how we believe, right? God created the world, He created the land, sea, sun, all. So Jainism does not believe in this. Okay, that there is a God which creates the universe. But it basically says that the universe It runs according to its own principles. Okay, so there is no single deity that is responsible for creation of the universe as well as of governance of the universe. It also says that the universe is eternal. Okay, without beginning, without end. So, and there is no divine intervention. So, therefore, when the whole concept of God comes there, it basically refers to those who have achieved liberation, those who have liberated themselves from the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. So, potentially, anybody can become a god in that sense, if a person has reached that level of liberation. Now, another question comes: is there a kind of worship? Okay, what and how? Exactly. So we see that when we speak about worship here, you are not praying for, it is not praying for mercy or forgiveness or salvation. Okay, here when you speak about prayer or when you speak about worship, it is more about being inspired, okay, and following the guidance of the teachers or of the Tirthankars. So it is in that sense that we see they have their worship and their rituals as well. Now, you must have already dealt with this Anekantavada. So what does this refer to? We see that reality can be many-sided. So what do we understand by this many-sided reality? In the sense you can have different perspectives. So that means truth and reality can be looked from different angles, and we cannot claim that one single viewpoint is true. Now I am sure that you all would have heard of the example of the blind man and the elephant. So we see that there are 5 blind men and there is an elephant in front. Each one touches a different part of the elephant. Somebody touches the leg and feels that it is a trunk of a tree. Somebody touches the tail and feels that the elephant is a rope. Okay. So in this way we see that it is only when all the perspectives are put together that you have a complete picture. So here we see that each part holds, each perspective holds a part of the truth, but none of the perspectives encompasses the whole reality. So it doesn't give the whole picture. Another important principle is the theory of conditional predications. So here we see that any reality or any statement is dependent on conditions and perspectives. So, for example, if there is somebody who says that the apple is red, can we imply from this? Okay, so apple is red here, so that means we are looking at a ripe apple. Now the same apple, if it is seen in a very dark room, it will appear to be a darker shade of red, it won't be a bright red. Similarly, if it is put under the X-ray, we see that it will appear differently. So that means it depends on the conditions, depends on the perspectives and how we look at various things in life. Another important aspect we see is tolerance and regard for all. Now, how is this applicable? So, first and foremost, what do we mean by tolerance? Okay, accepting. Now, how does this acceptance come about? It comes about because understanding the uniqueness, and at the same time, we see that knowing that you can have multiple perspectives and that things can be dependent on various factors. So this we see that cultivates an open mindset where we are ready to accept each one as unique and different. For example, when we look at a classroom, everyone comes from a different cultural background. Okay, our likes and dislikes can be different, and therefore we see that the very fact that all of us choose to join in a common activity, it means that we tend to tolerate, we tend to accept, okay, each other's uniqueness, each other's views, each other's perspectives. Okay, so when we come to epistemology, we see that there are three primary sources of knowledge. So first is perception. And what does this refer to? How is knowledge gained here in perception? Through the senses. So direct sensory experience is the primary source of knowledge. So for example, when you look at a tree, so you looking at the tree provides you the knowledge of the existence of the tree, the color of the tree, the shape of the tree, etc. Inference. What do we understand by inference? Okay, infer, yes, but something more? Okay, so in a way, you look at one particular, so the common example here is smoke and fire. Okay, so where there is a smoke, there is fire. So basically what we can say here is knowledge that is gained through reasoning and deduction. You look at one thing and based on that you reason out that there is something prior to it. And finally you have testimony, which is knowledge through reliable sources. So then we have also the Shabda also is there, but Agama also is used. So when it comes to the practical teachings of Jainism, you have the three ratna, that is the three gems: right faith, right knowledge, right conduct. So what will right faith include? Okay, faith in the teachings, and also in the true nature of reality. And we see that this right faith in a way forms a kind of a backbone for the other two. When you have faith in the teachings, when you have faith in the scriptures, only then can you attain knowledge, and based on that you can behave, or your conduct also depends on that. So therefore right knowledge would be accurate understanding of the universe, and the right conduct would be ethical behavior and following the principles. So therefore a Jain follower would have faith in the teachings of the Tirthankaras. This would lead him to then get knowledge about how liberation can be achieved, what is karma, how is the soul in a way kind of obscured by karma, and that would lead him to his behaviors. Now we take with the 5 vows, right? What are the 5 vows in Jainism? We did it in the beginning also, it has come already once. So we have non-violence, okay? And what does non-violence imply? No harming. Truth, basically avoiding lies. Then you also have non-stealing. Okay, so not taking what is not freely given. Okay, so also you have non-possession, which is basically non-attachment, and finally you have chastity. Now when we speak about non-violence, what does it apply? Does it only mean in the strict sense, or can there be some other sense of that? We see that non-violence here will apply in thought, word, and action. And therefore this also emphasizes compassion to all who are around. Then also through its ethical principles, it emphasizes development of one's personality that aims for the well-being of all. And you have 2 levels of discipline. one for the monks and nuns, and other for the laymen and lay women. For example, we see the vows remain the same, but they vary in degree. For example, non-possessiveness, okay, or non-possession. How will this vary among the two? So, for example, for the monks and nuns, non-possession will mean absolute abstinence. But whereas for the laymen, lay women, non-possession means whatever is required for you to fulfill your duty, you keep it. And extra is generally given in charity. So you have two levels of discipline in that sense. So we can see that truth, according to their system of education, is relativistic and pluralistic. So as we have seen, you can have many perspectives. So therefore, in a classroom, students would be encouraged to explore different perspectives and also hold their respective viewpoints. Now we see that each soul has certain potentialities to gain knowledge, to gain power, to be free. And therefore it is said that education of knowledge can help individuals realize their true nature. And therefore their educational practices would include meditation as well as reflective practices. And therefore their education system also will have ethical teachings as well as spiritual practices which focus on values and virtues. And all this is aimed for the development of the individual personality, that is, growth and ethical living. And the last aspect that we'll deal with is their methods of teaching. So, knowledge is gained through senses as well as meditation. And therefore, these two faculties need to be developed. You need to know how to use your senses. You also need to know how to meditate. So, this is something that your education system will deal with. Next, also it focuses on social and tolerant teaching to bring happiness to the majority present. And finally, action-based education. So focus on karma, how individual actions can affect your own self, and therefore it should be, education must be action based and ideally oriented. So now let's come to this question. How does the concept of plurality of souls influence its education philosophy? So we have seen plurality of souls, we have spoken about different perspectives. How do you think that it influences its education philosophy? So what is something we dealt with? Okay, so one thing you can say, there is no ultimate knowledge. Something about uniqueness. Since every soul is unique, how does it affect its education philosophy? That means you have an inclusive perspective. That means everyone is given importance, and therefore the education caters not only to the intelligent, but it also has to cater to those who are below average and average. Next, can we speak about diversity? We have each one belonging to different cultures, different temperaments. Therefore, the education philosophy also includes everyone together. That means you have a kind of a personalized learning experience. Anything else can be, when we look at the concept of plurality of souls? Does anything else come to your mind? Okay. Explain a little bit. Morality. Okay, so maybe ethical values. We also see that each one's potential is or should be recognized. Because we see that each one may have a different skill set. They all may not be very bright, others may be skilled in some other talents, other activities. So therefore, for some it may be learning through books, which would be useful. For others it could be through some other aids. So therefore, recognizing this is very important. Any other thing that we can? Okay, so thank you.